the biscotti is very easy, so let's get started. I'm going to start by mixing all our dry ingredients. I have here cake flour. I'm using cake flour instead of all-purpose flour because cake flour is lighter and we want a lighter biscotti. I'm also adding an almond flour because I like the flavor of almond. If you don't have almond flour, so you can just use another 2 tablespoons of cake flour. And then we have here the baking powder to give the biscotti a rise, and of course some salt, give it some taste. So we're just gonna sift this. So the reason why we're sifting the dry ingredients, it's because sifting actually aerates the flour, which means it actually makes it finer and lighter. As you can see, there are like clumps of flour, and this is normal when you're using cake flour and almond flour. So I just try to press it to remove to flatten the lumps. I'm just using a regular strainer. If you have a flour sifter, that'll work too. But this is as good as it could get, and you don't have to buy a flour like a sifter just to do this. Okay, so this is done. So we're done mixing the dry ingredients. I'm just gonna lift the bowl and then just give it a quick stir, and then we're just gonna set this aside. So the next thing we need to do now is we have to mix our wet ingredients. So for the wet ingredients, what I have here is we're going to mix we have the oil. So this is just a mild olive oil. If you don't have an olive oil, you can probably use like any flavorless oil. And then I'm gonna mix the sugar, and let's just give it a light mix, just enough to combine it together. And after that, I'm gonna add a room temperature egg. It is very important that you use a room temperature egg for this one because room temperature egg actually mix better. So we're just gonna mix this until it becomes lighter in color, pale in color. Okay, so we've already beaten the mixture for 3 minutes, and after 3 minutes, this is how it looks like. So it's light, and you can see it's really pale in color. Okay, so I'm just gonna remove this. So the next thing that we need to do now is to mix the dry ingredients and the wet ingredients. So before we do that, sorry, I almost forgot. We have to add about half a teaspoon of vanilla extract for flavoring. So make sure to use the pure vanilla extract. So there are some imitation ones, and of course the pure has a better flavor than imitation. So make sure to read the label and pick the one that says pure instead of the imitation one. Okay. So the next thing that we're gonna do is to mix the dry ingredients into the wet ingredients, and we're gonna sift it again for the second time. So the reason why we're doing this is we want to make sure that the biscuit dough will be light in texture, right? So we're just gonna sift it for the second time around. So So you can do it in 2 additions, and then you just press it like this, and then we're gonna mix this. Just fold it lightly fold it, because you don't want to kind of like deflate the batter. So I'm just making a swirl and until it gets incorporated. So and then just scrape the sides, and then just keep on just kind of like folding and scraping the side of the bowl. There we go. And then okay, then we can put the remaining half of the dry ingredients here, and then just sift it. As you can see, there's still some small lumps there. That's from the almond flour. That's why we really wanna sift it to make sure that it's fine. Okay, so for the second time, just scrape the side and then fold. Yeah. So it will start to come together. It's going to be a sticky dough, so biscuit dough, so expect that. So that's okay, that's what you're expecting. You don't want a something that's too dense, because a too dense dough would actually give you a tough biscotti. Okay, we don't have to mix it fully, just like that. It's okay, it still have like traces of a flour. So next thing we want to do is to, I have here a pistachio, 2 tablespoons, and I also have here some cranberry, another 2 tablespoons. Okay. So I'm just going to use the other spoon, plastic spoon, because it's more sturdy than this silicone spatula, and it's easier to mix now. It's going to be easier to mix it because the batter is now like thick. So just kind of mix it. Okay, that's, so if you see it, the batter is really kind of like sticky. If I lift it like this, yeah, it's really sticky. So that's okay. That's what we want. We are gonna shape it into a log, because we have to cut it into small pieces. But before we do that, because this is a really sticky dough, what we wanna do is to just set it aside here. And I have here a flour. I'm just gonna put flour in the working surface. You have to put a lot of flour here. Well, you don't have to use all this flour, but I'm just gonna put there. And then make sure to flour your hand as well, generously, so it helps in the handling of the dough. Okay, so this really sticky dough will now go into this surface here. Yeah. Make sure to scrape the ball so that you get everything. Okay, good. I'm gonna make it 3. So that's 3 by, actually it's by 7. That's okay. That's easy. Yeah, it's gonna be sticky to lift, but it's okay. And then we can just reshape it when it's gonna make it really snug round. And then I'll show you how it is after baking. Okay, so our biscotti is done. So this is the first baking. You see how it looks like. So the side is kind of like brown already, and while the middle is still a little slightly white, still soft. So the next thing we're gonna do is I'm gonna transfer it in the cutting board. You can just lift the parchment paper like this, and we're going to cut it. So a very important thing to note here, I had this biscotti cooled for 10 minutes before cutting it. It's very important. Make sure that you cool it down before you cut it, because you don't want to break the biscotti because it's still slightly soft. So cool it down for 10 to 15 minutes, and then once it's ready warm to your touch, then it's ready for cutting. So we started with a 7-inch, and now it's about 8 inches after baking, and then from 3 inches it becomes like 4 inches. So 7 by 3, and then after baking you'll end up with an 8 by 4. So we're gonna cut this one, so you could make it like a half inch thick, or you can make it thicker or thinner, the way you like it. You don't have to use a ruler to do like all the cutting, but if you want to be exact, you can use a ruler, or you can just eyeball it. So I'm just gonna cut the tip, because this is normally the uneven portion. Cut it there, and then I'm also going to cut this one here. Just slowly cut it. Okay. So another tip here is make sure that you're using a serrated knife. It's very important to do that, because the cutting is easier. So what we're going to do is so this is how it should be, like thin, about half an inch. I think half an inch should be okay. So just cut it slowly. Okay, so now that we've got this, the next thing that we need to do is we're gonna bake it for the second time, but before we do that, we have to transfer it in our cookie sheet as well. Here we go. I'm just gonna lift this parchment paper. You see how easy it is if you have the parchment paper already? So you just have to lift it. When you're transferring it for cutting, you just lift it. When you're transferring it for the second baking, we'll just lift it. So next thing we do is we're gonna bake it again. So just have it arranged like this.